Okay, so we are good to start our session. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever part of the world you are in. This is your host, Ashutosh Bhatawadekar, once again with an exciting session of learning for all of you. And today we are going to talk about risk management and more specifically risk management in the agile world. Now, I know this is a very interesting topic. Many people had asked for it. So I'll be sharing my thoughts about risk management in the agile world. How exactly do we, or for that matter, do we even have risk management in the agile world, right? I mean, that's a question which many of us would be having. That's a question many of us would be intrigued with because, I mean, in a traditional project management, we do see risk management activities which are there. But what about the agile world, right? Do we really have risk management activities, or how different are risk management activities which are there, right? So all those things I'll be discussing as we move along. Thanks for all those folks who have joined us from YouTube, who have joined us from LinkedIn Live. It is really wonderful to have all of you, and plus the folks who have joined with me at the Zoom meeting here. So really appreciate all of you joining this call at the moment. So let me first introduce myself. My name is Ashutosh Bhatawadekar. I'm an enterprise agile coach, a consultant, and a trainer, and I help organizations transition and transform into an agile way of working. Been in the industry for almost 22 years now. Also been a coach, I would say, for last 14 to 15 years. And I do have my YouTube channel. I think many of you in this forum already know. But those of you who don't know, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's free. Obviously, the subscription is free. I'm sending the link right away in the chat box. Do watch. We have now 120 plus videos which are there. And these videos obviously will help you to learn, know something new, or know something which is exciting. So feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I also have a Telegram group, Pune Agile Thought Leaders. And yeah, those are my coordinates which are there. All right. So the topic for today's discussion is risk management in the agile world. Now, I'll tell you a very interesting story before I talk about what exactly is risk all about. So when, my profile has been that of a traditional project manager. So I started my career way back in 1997. And I started as a software developer, then became a module lead, then a team lead, then a project lead, a project manager, a program manager. That has been my growth, or that has been my transition in the software world. And this continued till almost 2009, 2010 time frame is when I was managing programs, I was managing projects. And obviously risk management was an integral part in all these, right? I mean, you cannot do project or a program management without doing risk management activities. And then 2009, 2010, I first went into an agile way of working. So I was one of the first of the persons identified to be trained in an agile approach. And that time, of course, it was a Scrum Master certification, which I underwent. And then obviously we started working, trying to transition and transform projects into agile world. And one day a team member asked me a question. Tell me one thing, where does Agile Manifesto talk about risk management? Do any of the values and the 12 principles of the Agile Manifesto really talk about risk management? Or let us take a particular framework, right? Let's take Scrum. Where does the Scrum Guide talk about the risk management? I'm sure if you would have not noticed it, now you will notice it, right? Just do a search in the Scrum Guide. You probably may not find a word called as risk management there. Okay, there's nothing called as a risk management in the Scrum Guide. The 4 values and the 12 principles of the Agile Manifesto does not even talk about the word risk as such, right? Forget risk management. There's no word called as a risk which is there. So does it mean that we don't do risk management in an agile way of working? That was the question which I was posed. Okay, and this is, by the way, a very classic interview question also. Many times in the interview, they will trap you by asking, where in agile is risk management all about? Or do we really do risk management in an agile way of working? So yes, I mean, that time I fumbled a bit. I mean, I said, no, but I mean, how can you run a project or how can you execute a project without risk management? The other person still pestered, and she said, no, but tell me, where is risk management in agile, right? I mean, do we really need risk management in an agile way of working, or why exactly is risk management required in an agile way of working? So that was the question which was asked.
Recording.
So as I said, I did not have an answer for that question at that point in time, but later on, I did my own retrospective. Later on, I tried to analyze this question more in detail. And I did figure out that there are stronger elements of risk management in an agile way of working. In fact, if you ask me, risk management is all the more important in an agile way of working, where we talk about, as we all know, right? I mean, individuals and interactions over processes and tools, where we say that more than processes and tools, individuals and interactions are important, right? Working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and of course, last but not the least, responding to change over following a plan. Now, if you look at these elements on the left-hand side, which I just mentioned, they are nothing but risk management activities in an agile engagement, right? The Agile Manifesto value statement itself talks about indirectly, not directly. It indirectly does talk about the risk management, the core risk management activities in a project. So yes, traditionally, they may not have used the word risk. They might not have been qualifying it with risk management or something, but the 4 values and the 12 principles of the Agile Manifesto clearly articulate, or they try to hint or allude to a risk management approaches we are doing. And the same thing applies for the 12 principles. So if you scrutinize the 12 principles of the Agile Manifesto, they some way or the other are related to a risk management approach, which we use in a traditional project. All right. So how would you define risk? I think this is what every project manager has got a nightmare. In fact, I always say, and this is not something which I have devised, this is something which has come over the ages. There is not a single project in this world which does not have a risk. Show me a project which does not have a risk and I will leave project management. I mean, that's the mantra I used to always say, right? I used to always say as a part of this, right? So show me a project which basically does not have a risk. And yeah, I will show you and I'll take my basically designation back as a project manager. So when we talk about risk, the underlying element of a risk is an uncertainty. Okay, it's an uncertainty which is there, and you'll be surprised to know. And the moment we talk about uncertainty, I don't know how many people know it. Risk can also be positive. Remember this. Risk need not always be negative. We always tend to think of risk in terms of a negative connotation, but risk does have a positive way, or a positive risk, what is called as an opportunity. I'll give an example. Okay, let me do a small survey. How many of you are happy doing work from home? Can you raise hand? How many of you are happy doing work from home? Now that COVID situation is almost in a stable range, how many of us are really happy to continue to do work from home? And I'm pretty sure the number is going to be very, very high. The number is absolutely going to be very, very high. That was an opportunity you had, my friend. That was an opportunity you had for last 2 years, which you actually got it, right? Yeah, but the poll, I mean, yes, I mean, some people might hate it. Some people might detest it, but the overwhelming majority when a poll was being carried out is that people don't want to come back to office. That's why, at least we know, right? I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, big companies, whether it is Google, Microsoft, they're struggling to get back employees back to workplace, right? So that's a positive risk which has realized over a period of time, right? So positive risk, yes, there is a concept of a positive risk or an opportunity. Yes, we all know that risk also has got negative connotations. So it's an uncertain event. It's an uncertain event or a condition which could impact one or multiple project objectives. So what are the multiple project objectives which are there? We have project objectives like scope, schedule, cost, etc. So those are the dimensions which risk could impact, or those are the elements which risk could be impacting, right? In a positive manner or in a negative manner. So as a project manager, as a traditional project manager, we know that we have to do an effective risk management, right? We have to basically consider the risk and the rewards which are there, right? And it's like a stock market, right? Some people are very aggressive. They play very aggressively in the stock market. There are some people who are very, very conservative in, and obviously people who play aggressively, they anticipate huge rewards. They anticipate something very, very high value, which is going to come out of this, right? So that's That's the direct correlation between the risk and the reward what we have, right? So there's a direct correlation which we have or which we tend to take as a part of our risk management strategy. So as a risk manager, as a project manager, or as a risk manager, what we need to understand is basically that risk is an uncertain event which will impact the project in a positive or negative manner. And risk management is all about uncertainty management. Okay, it's all about uncertainty management which we have. Okay, so these are the elements which are related to risk management which we need to understand, right? And the project manager, as we all know, is also called as a risk manager. Okay, so the project manager is also known as a risk manager, what we call it, right? So I think this is something which we know. Every risk has got two dimensions to it: probability and impact. So those are the two dimensions which are there in risk management. Probability is the chance. What is the chance of this risk event happening? And impact is how much will be the impact of this in terms of dollars, in terms of rupees, in terms of scheduled slippages. How much would be the impact which is there? So I think we all know this, the standard formula: risk exposure is probability multiplied by impact, right? And obviously we are going to rank the risk, right? We are going to rank the risk where all the risks related to the project are being captured. Now, I think we also know this, that the document which is required to do this is a risk register. So the name of the document is a risk register where we capture all the risks related to a project. Now, in a traditional project management way of working, you have something called as a risk management plan. And the risk management plan is a very, very comprehensive. So a risk management plan is going to show what is a risk strategy, what is a risk methodology which is there, how we are going to do the funding. I think we all know there's a contingency reserve, there's a management reserve for which the funding has to be done, and at what frequency we will be doing risk management and the categorization of the risk along with the standard probability and impact metrics. So can anyone tell me here quickly, what are some of the techniques of identifying risks? I mean, how do we identify risks in a project? And you can unmute yourself and speak now. If you want to speak also, you can now unmute and speak. So what are the techniques of identifying risks in a project? I mean, you may not know the standard terms, that is okay. But what would be those techniques which are used to identify the risks in a project? Anyone would like to write it down here? Or anyone would like to talk about it by unmuting yourself? Feel free to do that. What exactly are the techniques? Brainstorming. Okay, what else? Anything else apart from brainstorming? Any other technique which is there? Brainstorming is one of the techniques which we have. Any other techniques which we have? Okay, fishbone diagram. Okay, fishboning is one of the tools. Fishbone diagram is one of the tools which is used in conjunction with brainstorming, I would say. Risk workshops, yes, risk workshops are also which are there. That's correct. Risk workshops. So those are other techniques by which we can do risk management. Okay, no worries. But I was looking for more broader terms. I was looking for more broader areas where we talk about risk management and how fundamentally we do a risk management activities in the project. How do we go about and do the overall risk management activities in the project? Yeah, so there are different techniques. There are different ways and techniques of doing risk management in the project. And yeah, I mean, quantitative, qualitative, those are very advanced. I'm not going into those right now. But the way in which we do risk management is through these tools which are very popular. Okay, we have something called as a PESSL analysis. PESSL is an acronym which stands for political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environment. So your risk can be categorized using by doing a formal PESSL analysis. SWOT, I think everyone knows: strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. So those are the basically the SWOT analysis, what we call it. Then of course we have VUCA. VUCA analysis: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And then of course we have the TCOP. Okay, technical risks, environmental risk, commercial risks, what we have. Okay, then what we have are basically related to what we call as operational risk and political risk. Okay, so those are the different types of risks which we have. Okay, so those are the different elements or the different types of risks what we have. Now, there's a new thing which has been added in the COVID world. There's a new acronym which has been added, which is that. Does anyone know about that acronym? Okay, does anyone know about this acronym which has been added in the COVID world? I mean, yes, we do have VUCA, we do have SWOT, we do have takeoff. Okay, we do have, I mean, other techniques which are there, but there's a new one which has been added in the COVID world. Okay, so in the COVID world, a new one which has been added. Anyone guess any guesses for it? So I'll give you this as a homework. If you find out, that's good. I'm not going to reveal it. There's more of a homework. What I would say, the acronym now we have is BANI. BANI is the new acronym which has come up in the COVID world. Okay, so that is the acronym which has come up in the COVID world, which is there, which is called as a BANI, which is there. Okay, so BANI is something interesting. Just like we have VUCA, we have BANI, which is there. Okay, so that's a acronym of what we have, right? The BANI acronym, and that's a homework for you to find out what exactly is BANI all about. Okay, so yeah, I mean, these are the ways by which we can identify risks, or these are the ways by which we can identify which are the important risks which are there, right? And obviously, one of the documents which is used to capture risks is a risk register. Okay, one of the documents which is used to capture is a risk register which is there. Okay, so this is what we have it as a part of the risk register which is there. Okay, so that's a document which is there. Okay, so that's a risk register what we have, right? And risk register is basically either you can put it in an Excel, okay, or you can put it in a template, right? I mean, you can put it in a template which is there. So that's a risk register what we have, right? So that's a document which at any point in time will show what are the risks in the project, right? And obviously you have the impact and probability, as you can see. You calculate the risk exposure which is there. Okay, and that is how we calculate the risk register and the risk exposure which is there. And then of course we will be having the risk mitigation strategy which is there. Okay, so that's the risk register what we have, right? I mean, this is one of the very powerful tools, or this is one of the tools which is used to capture the risks in the project which is there. Okay, so that's a risk register what we have as a part of this journey which is there. Okay, so that's what we have it as a part of the risk management activities which are there. Okay, yeah, this is obviously something in a traditional world, and we use a predefined risk chart. I think many of the traditional project managers will know this, right? We use this impact probability matrix, which will give us, okay, what is the impact, very low, low, high. Okay, what is the probability from very unlikely to very likely. And then we calculate the risk exposure which is there, which is the central figure, right? I mean, which is the intersecting figure which is there. And there are different charts to it. There are different elements or chart to it which are there. I think this is something what we do as a part of our risk management activities in the traditional world. Now, let me ask you this question, and you can unmute yourself. Let me ask you this question. If you want to do risk management activities in the agile world, how would you go around it? Okay, how would you go around it? Okay, so can anyone tell me how would you go around it? I mean, if you want to do a risk management in the agile way of working, now I've already told you how it is done in the traditional world. How would you go about and do it in an agile world? Or do you have any experience of doing it in an agile world? I mean, do you use the same techniques? Would you use a different techniques, or would you modify these techniques to a different way? How would you exactly go about and do it? Anyone would like to add here? I mean, you can unmute yourself and speak. I'll wait for a minute, and then maybe we can discuss. Anyone would like to unmute yourself and speak, or put it in the chat window? how would you do risk management in an agile world? What I have told you is a traditional approach. It's a very, very traditional approach, or the old school of thought. I won't call it as an old school of thought. I would beg to differ here. It will be a classic school of thought as to how risk management is done in a project. But now if you want to move it in an agile way, how would you do it? Or what is the approach you think would be the right approach? Anyone? Let me be on pause and let me see if anyone wants to unmute.
Hello.
Yeah.
Ashutosh, in Agile World, the risk management is done more frequently. I mean, every sprint, at the end of sprint, risk can be reviewed, and the monitoring is better in Agile World. And
Okay.
Agile gives the more forums, more opportunities to review, to update
Okay.
risk, to update the mitigation actions, and more importantly, to test validations and assumptions. So it's better risk management. And what we used to do is that we used to use Agile Jira Green Offer in Agile, and we used to create the risk in Jira itself. So in Jira itself, there used to be heat map and all these things. So
Okay.
the risk Jiras are relevant risk Jiras are also assigned as a sprint backlog. So
Okay. Okay. Got it.
so that those are being worked upon, and every stakeholders like product owner, team, and all those are tracking it, knowing it. So there are and people are mentally ready in case something happens about that risk actually.
Okay.
And mitigation plan and everything is in the place. So in fact, it is in better control, but it should not be looked at on the SDLC life cycle. Okay, after this phase, this is the risk. After that phase, that it should be looked in different perspective altogether. Actually.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Samir. Yeah, and yeah, feel free to come on camera. I think one thing COVID has given us is face-to-face interaction to camera. I always believe in coming on camera and interacting with you. So we have that psychological safety to come on camera and talk. I'll be more than happy. So yeah, thanks, Samir, for your input. Yes. So the way we do it in an agile way, if you ask me, every moment of your agile engagement, you are doing risk management, whether you're a product owner, whether you're a scrum master, whether you're a developer or any other role, what you're performing, every moment of this, you're actually doing a risk management activities. Okay, so you're conducting risk management activities as a part of your project, right? So, and that is what we are here to do it, right? That is what we need to understand. That can any of these techniques be identified in an how we can do risk management in an agile world. Now, what I have tried to do is I'm taking an example of a scrum, but the same thing will apply for Kanban. So many of these events may not be there for Kanban, obviously. Like for Kanban, we may not have a sprint planning because there is no concept of a sprint in a Kanban. Yes, you do have something like a daily meeting in Kanban. You do have a review. You do have a retrospective. And by the way, even in Kanban, you do a planning. The only thing it is not called is called as a sprint planning. So the same thing can be replicated across any of the frameworks, right? So whether you're using Scrum, whether you are using Scrumban, or whether you are using, let us say, Safe Agile, all these elements are something which can be replicated, right? So that is something what we need to understand here. Okay, those are the elements what we need to understand as a part of this journey what we are going to talk about. So let us try to decipher how risk management activities are done. Now, when we talk about sprint planning, I think we all know this is an event which happens on the first day of the sprint. The entire team is involved in sprint planning. The team picks up an item from the product backlog. They will basically understand whether it is doable or not. They will break it into tasks and they will estimate it. They will give a commitment, blah, blah, blah. I think we all know this, what happens in a sprint planning meeting. But one of the major areas where risk could occur is an improper definition of ready. I think we all know definition of ready is a very, very vital checklist which is required. And how does the team decide whether a story is ready to be picked up or not? And if my definition of ready is poorly defined, obviously that is going to be a risk for my sprint, right? There's a high probability that my story is not going to be completed, right? So that's a DOR, or a definition of ready, what we have, right? So that is one of the key elements which is there. And of course, a definition of done. An improper constructed definition of done would have a major impact on the sprint success, right? You won't be able to go to the sprint review, right? Sprint review is something which will happen only when the product owner is convinced that your user stories are meeting the DoD checklist or a DoD criteria. So those are the two elements where there could be a risk. And as a Scrum Master, you do risk identification, risk mitigation, risk control activities across these documents. Many times, for example, I have seen that the way your definition of ready is constructed is very, very ambiguous. For example, the screen should come quickly. I mean, what do you mean by quickly? Quickly is a very vague term, right? I mean, quickly for you could be 5 seconds. For me, it could be 10 seconds. For someone else who's developing, it could be 20 seconds. So what do you mean by quickly? No use of the word adjectives, because the moment you start using the word adjectives, you have added a risk element into it. You have actually added a risk, and you need to then handle that risk as a part of it. So definition of ready, definition of done, forecast. We all say that the sprint goal is nothing but a forecast. And many times we have this habit of adding a stretch objective. I'm not saying that it's a bad habit. It is definitely encouraging habit, because basically your team is trying to go that extra mile. But predominantly your stretch objective is nothing but a risk. It's an uncertainty. You don't know whether you will achieve a stretch objective or not, right? It's an uncertainty what you have added into the sprint backlog, which is there, right? So that's an uncertainty. And of course, spikes or enablers, right? Spikes, I think we all know, right? I mean, when the story is not clear and we would like to basically take it forward, at the same time, we don't want to commit to it, but we tell the product owner that let's create a spike story. And a spike story is what we create as a part of it, right? So that's a risk element which is there. Okay, so that's an added risk element what you have done as a part of this exercise which is there. Okay, so this is the enabler or a spike what we have. Okay, so that's an enabler or a spike story which is there. Now the next important opportunity, which is one of the most important opportunity, and you have to do risk management in really a time box of 15 minutes, is a daily scrum. So daily scrum is an opportunity to handle some of the risks what you are encountering. So what is the daily scrum? I did not tell this group what is the daily scrum, where we basically check the progress against the sprint goal. And if at all there is any deviation which is impacting the progress, you have to take some action. So either you will take a corrective action or you will take a preventive action. So those are the two actions you are going to take. What is a corrective action? Corrective action is after a problem has occurred, like my car breaking down on the motorway and I call a mechanic. That is a corrective action. Preventive action is a proactive action which I'm taking, like a regular servicing of my car. So similarly in my sprint, as a Scrum Master, I might take a corrective action when the problem has really occurred, especially when the team has got an impediment or a blocker, or I might take a proactive action, or I might take a preventive action, anticipating that there could be a situation which could be coming. I might take a preventive action, which is there. Now, one more area of confusion which many of us have, okay, and we use these two terms interchangeably, impediment and blocker. They are not same, friends. Okay, they are not same. I mean, if you answer this question in an interview that an impediment equal to blocker and a blocker equal to impediment, that's a wrong answer. Straight away, you are reducing your chances of getting selected. Okay, there's a difference between an impediment and a blocker. I'll give an example. Okay, so let us say you're driving on a motorway, which is a 4-lane motorway. Okay, and out of 4 lanes, let us say 1 lane is closed. Okay, 1 lane is closed, and the entire traffic has moved to the 3 lanes. That is what? Is that an impediment or is it a blocker? What do you think? The traffic has moved to the 3 lanes because 1 lane has slowed down, or 1 lane is actually having some potholes, or it is having some kind of an impediment. Let us say there's a car accident which has happened and they have closed that lane. That is an impediment. That is an impediment which is there. The entire highway being closed, all the 4 lanes being closed is a blocker. So next time when you're in a daily scrum event, make sure you don't use these two terms interchangeably. There's a difference between the two terms, and you have to also coach your teams that do you really mean a blocker or are you meaning an impediment? Because I've seen team members using these two terms interchangeably. Oh, you know what, I have a blocker. In reality, it is not a blocker, it is an impediment which is there. Okay, because the way why it is important to differentiate is because the way you handle it is different. Okay, I'll give you another example from the medical science. I'm not an expert. Many people confuse cardiac arrest and heart attack to be same. No, they are not same. Okay, cardiac arrest is different, heart attack is different. Okay, it's that difference what is there. Okay, and yes, I mean, you ask a doctor, he or she will explain the difference between a heart attack and a cardiac arrest, right? So somehow we use those terms interchangeably, right? Cardiac arrest and heart attack. Similarly, we have impediment and blocker, which are two different things. They are two fundamental different things which are there. Okay, they are not same. Okay, so that's very important. Those are risk. Those are major areas where you can identify risks in your daily Scrum. Burn up, burn down chart. I think these are one of the very effective tools to identify if there is a risk which is coming up. The slope, right? The slope of the burn up, burn down chart will give you an indication from a risk management perspective. And last but not the least in a daily Scrum is, do we have a plan for tomorrow? Or are we just doing a daily Scrum for the sake of doing it and then we are dispersing it, right? What is an actionable plan? What are the things we are planning to do for tomorrow, right? How are we planning to make sure that we are back on track on the sprint goal? So that is nothing but an actionable plan for the next day. Now, what I'm trying to tell here is that you don't have to be as elaborative as in the traditional world. In the traditional world, you have all this written in a big bulky document. Here you can use a whiteboard. Here you can actually use a whiteboard to capture all these elements related to risk, which is there. Okay, so this is what some of the highlights of a risk in a daily Scrum of what we see. Now let us go to a sprint review. What could be the risks in a sprint review? The product not working as expected. I think that's a major blunder you can get into, right? I mean, it was working absolutely fine in your test environment, but when you try to give a sprint review, it is not working as expected, or it is having some major issues which is there. That could be one area of element. The progress is not there to the product goal. Remember, the product goal is an overarching goal, what is there, right? I mean, it's an overarching goal, what we have. And we actually have, are we actually going towards the product goal? Are we regressing or are we progressing towards the product goal? Then product backlog adjustment. Are we able to adjust our product backlog? Are we doing refinement properly, right? Is the product backlog really reflecting the ask of our customers? So that could be one of the areas where risk could be hiding or risk could be hidden. I always say, right? I mean, in an agile project, risks are hidden. Okay, they may not be as visible as you get a time in a traditional project. You really have to go every nook and corner, right? So I think one person was asking me, right? How do you do risk management in an agile versus a traditional way? And I gave a very interesting example. I said that, if you're mopping your floor with a normal mop, right, with a hand, that is a traditional risk management. But if you're using a vacuum cleaner to go to every nook and corner of your furniture, crevices, etc., right, or slots, block holes, etc., that is actually how you do risk management in an agile world. So you need a vacuum cleaner in an agile world. Now, a normal broom may not be able to identify risks in an agile project. You actually need a vacuum cleaner to go to every nook and corner of the house to actually extract the risk, right? So vacuum cleaner is something what would be needed here. And obviously product features, right? How are the product features behaving? Are too many defects coming in, right? It's not only about the current sprint. For the deliveries you have done in the past, are you getting too many defects, or are the defects of lesser attribute, right? So those come in as a part of your risk management attributes or a risk management features in your project, right? Retrospective. I think this is one of the best opportunities where you can relax and identify all the risks. I think we all know what went well, what did not go well, what are the action items. This is nothing but a simple risk register. If you ask me, this is the risk register of your agile engagement. What went well, what did not go well, and what are the action items, right? How do we improve? An improvement plan. That is again a risk mitigation strategy. So that's a risk mitigation or a risk handling strategy what we have, right? How do we improve? How do we make sure that the next sprint will be better than the current sprint which is there? So that's a risk mitigation strategy which is there. What stops us from achieving? What are the impediments or what is stopping us from achieving those things? right? That is another one. And what propels us, right? Obviously, those are the positive things which are there, which are, or are we even getting time to propel, right? Are we really thinking about what is going to take us to the next level, which is there? Okay. So these elements, these 16 elements, and again, you don't have to restrict yourself to these 16 elements only. You can increase or reduce the list, but these are basically the elements which will help you to identify some of the critical risks. Some of the critical risks are related to project. This is what we would be doing as a part of this exercise which is there. Okay, so that's what are the techniques by which we can do risk management in the agile world, which is there. And then, of course, one of the tools you can use is a risk map. So you can plot all these 16 on a scale of 1 to 5, and you can generate a risk map. Or alternative way of doing this is a risk radar. Okay, and obviously it's a radar, right, which will give you the health, right? Obviously, cumulatively over a period of time, you will have to reduce the risk, right? I mean, if the risk radar is showing a wider coverage, you will have to reduce it. I think some of these tools became very popular during COVID-19. At least I learned a lot about these tools where they used to show, right, the exposure of COVID, right? So this is a risk exposure. This is showing where exactly, I mean, you have to reduce it. Okay, this is not a good sign what you're seeing right now. It's like a cancer, what you see in a report, right? I mean, the cancer cells have moved across the body, right? You have to basically kill them and you have to reduce them, right? So similarly here, you have to reduce it. You have to shrink this picture, what has been depicted here, and you have to basically shrink it over a period of time, right? You have to reduce the risk related to there, right? So this can be one of the ways. You can create a risk map, you can create a risk radar. So those are some of the tools what you can create, and you can basically plot it. And another important tool what we have is a risk burn down chart. Now, what is a risk burn down chart? A risk burn down chart at any point in time will show how progressively are we reducing risks. Are we reducing risks in our project or not? And if so, how we are doing. So we calculate a risk score, which is nothing but probability multiplied by impact. And we plot it at the beginning of the sprint or at the beginning of the release. And progressively, what are the steps we are taking to reduce it? This graph, of course, is the source of this is from the PMI website. But here there is a problem. If you see, you had reduced the risk, but suddenly they increased. They suddenly increased over a period of time. So progressively, you have to reduce it. Now, the ideal state would be to have this at 0, or it is shrink to almost nothing, but that won't happen. There still would be some elements of risk which would remain in the project. Like here also, ideal state would have been that the risk score comes down to 0, but that is rarely going to happen. There will be some element of risk which will be there, or there will be some element of risk which will continue to be there in the project. As I said, there is no project in this world which basically has got 0 risk, right? I mean, definitely risks will continue to be there in the project during the life cycle of the project which is there. Okay, so these are basically what we call it as a part of the risk management strategy in an agile way. I mean, there are many, but I have just tried to list down some of the important ones. I mean, to start with, something which you can start with in your project. You don't need any special permission. You don't need anything. You can do it on an Excel. You can do it on a white paper, whether it's a risk map, whether it's a risk radar. And I mean, you can create a structure like this, which will help you plot those radars which are there, the risk radar which are there. And this could be an easiest way of doing risk management activities in your project. So on that note, I end my session. I would say rather I pause my session, and I'm open for any questions, any queries or any clarifications any of you have. Just a word of marketing here. I'm actually sharing my YouTube channel link with all of you. If interested, do subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's a free subscription. You don't have to pay anything. And I have now almost 120 plus videos to help you grow as a Scrum Master, Agile Coach, Product Owner, or an Agile Leader. Do watch those videos, and most importantly, like, subscribe, and also provide your critical comments on the video. I'll be more than happy to have those comments which are there. So kindly subscribe to my channel, which is there. This session is also coming on YouTube Live. It is also there on LinkedIn. So those of you who are on YouTube or LinkedIn, You can type in the question in those forum. There's a slight lag in those two platforms. So I will revert back to you most probably after the session. It will be the right time for me to revert back to you to the answers of this question, right? But anyone here who would like to have a question asked, feel free to unmute yourself. And yeah, I would be happy if you people can also come on camera here. That would really be great. Yeah, anyone would like to come on camera, feel free to come on camera here. Yeah, anyone, any questions? Please unmute yourself and you can ask me any questions. Where do agile teams track risk? As I think I already answered that, and Samir also mentioned it. It's in the Jira board. They were doing it, but I would say even a basic Excel would suffice if you ask me. Even a basic Excel, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. I always believe in that mantra, right? A basic Excel sheet is also something which could basically help us track risks in the project. Yeah. Any other question anyone has? As I said, feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question.
Yeah, Ashutosh, Samir here. Sorry, my bandwidth is not so good, so I cannot turn on camera. But in your earlier slides, you had said that risk burndown chart actually. So
Correct.
do you mean that we need to calculate probability impact of the risk and have overall score day by day, and how that value is calculated day by
Yes,
day?
it is actually, I mean, if day by day is too much of an overhead, you can do it on a
Correct.
sprint by sprint. You can have it on a release basis. This risk burndown chart is something you can track it at a release basis also. That is also absolutely fine.
Okay, because in
I
your
mean,
it was the dates were there and consecutive dates.
yeah.
So
So
I
you can
was.
do it at a day by day also. You can do it at a release by release
Yeah,
also.
yeah.
The critical data for this would come in for basically from the feature completion report or the feature completion status, etc. That is where it would come from.
So that okay, fine. That means that that overall risk score is there, and the overall risk score is calculated based on the probability impact value or maybe risk priority number, and then overall score is calculated. Is it like that?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
That's correct. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, sprint by sprint is a good idea actually.
I mean, that I would say is a better one. Yeah, Mukesh has a question. Yeah, RT is the chief scrum master. We all know, right? I mean, at an RT level, I would do. I mean, if you're talking about SAFe already has got a recommended model, right? Rome. I think everyone knows Rome, especially since the word RT came up. Rome is what? Resolved, owned, accepted, mitigated. So SAFe uses that framework. But even as an RT, I will do it at a release train level, right? I mean, at an art level, I will capture the risk and I'll try to progressively see how the risk is. I mean, again, I can use a burn down chart at an RT level. So absolutely, I can use a burn down chart, which is there at an RT level. Yeah. Any other question anyone has? Rome, Rome is resolved, owned, accepted, mitigated, or managed. It's managed actually. How is risk burn down chart different from a sprint burn down chart? Oh, interesting. Okay, risk burn down chart. See, risk burn down chart is about risk, to put it in a simple way. Sprint burn down chart is about your story completion, whether your stories are getting completed or not, right? So that is a risk burn down versus what we call as a sprint burn down chart. There are two different things which are there. Okay, though they are related to some extent, but their fundamental data elements are two different data elements which are there between a risk burn down chart and a sprint burn down chart. Yeah. Anyone?
So
Any other?
basically, Ashutosh, like you said about sprint burn down chart and the difference between risk burn down chart. So, like we have the option for sprint burn down chart in the Jira. Do we have any option as such option for risk burn down chart so that we can plot that?
No. There's no option available in Jira. You might want to customize it. I mean, you might want customization and do it, but by default, Jira does not come with this burn down chart. It does not. I think none of the tools come out. I'm not sure if version 1 or any other tool comes out with it, but you might want to do put it there. Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Thanks for that.
Okay. Yeah, any other question? Yeah, and yes, I mean, just wanted to let you know, those of you newcomers, we do have this some happy hours of coaching on a regular basis. If you are interested, I mean, of course, many of you are already connected with me on LinkedIn, but I also have other groups on. I mean, there's a group on LinkedIn also which is available. There's a group also available on Telegram. If you're interested, feel free to join those groups. You will get a message of this. Okay, you will get a message of this in this chat which is there. Okay, and I'll also send you there. I mean, as a mail. I mean, as a mail, you will get it. But if you are interested to join our other groups, yes, you will come to know about them as a part of this. I mean, as a part of this messaging which will come in, right? So you'll get a recording, a link to the recording of this session, and a link to join those groups which are there. But yeah, I mean, YouTube link I have already shared. Even on LinkedIn, I have just now shared it. So feel free to connect on, the YouTube video link, I have shared it on LinkedIn. And feel free to join me. More sessions coming up in the near future on various topics. So do get glued to the LinkedIn. I try to do it on every Friday, but yeah, sometimes when I'm traveling, obviously we are back to the, from remote way of working, we are back to the office way of working. So many times I'm traveling also nowadays. So, I mean, the whole idea of this happy hours of coaching was to make it more lively environment during COVID-19 pandemic. But we have continued this session even after COVID, right? I mean, Friday evenings were very dull during COVID times, right? That is where this concept started. And yes, I mean, you can look at the past happy hours of coaching session on my channel also. I mean, there are a lot of topics. Some external speakers have also come in and delivered. And we're trying to get more external speakers in these events, some industry experts also who will talk on other topics. Yeah. Any other question before we finally wind up? I mean, of course, you can ask me questions later also. But any other questions anyone has? And yeah, coming to my last segment of my talk, I always believe that every session should give you roti. Roti, I think people in India know roti. Chapati roti, I think everyone knows, but I call it in a different way, right? And many of you might be thinking this session is free. No, this session is not free. Okay, okay, don't worry. I'm not going to ask you to pay any money. You know, this session is not free. You have. Roti is nothing but return on time invested. Okay, roti is nothing but return on time invested. And I hope you earned roti today. I sincerely hope that you earned a roti today because you have invested almost 40 minutes, which is more precious than money. In fact, 50 minutes now as we speak. You have spent 50 minutes of your valuable resource with me. I hope you got the necessary return out of it. As I said, this session is not free. In fact, it is much more costlier than the money which you would have spent on this session. So I sincerely hope that you earned roti today. So just give me a thumbs up if you earned a roti today, right, in this session. Okay. And so on that note, I think we are good to close the session and wishing you a very, very happy learning, happy return back to office, happy, I would say, career growth. All those things is what I would request. I would basically appreciate that you get it all. And thanks a lot and a very happy weekend to all of you. This is Ashutosh Bhatawadekar signing off for the moment. Thank you and have a great